What is up? Welcome into yet another edition of Benstant Reaction. An instant reaction to a trade, to a game, to whatever is big happening in the sports world. We are reacting to it here on Benstant Reaction. And now we are reacting to the Chiefs-49ers game, the highly anticipated Super Bowl rematch in which the Chiefs ultimately won this game. If I'm not mistaken, it was 28-14, the final score. I guess I should have 28-18, the final score here for the Chiefs over the San Francisco 49ers. A few takeaways from this game. We'll get to the Chiefs aspect in just a minute, because in just a minute, I'm going to tout how amazing the Kansas City Chiefs are. Patrick Mahomes is awesome. I'm going to compare them to not the Patriots dynasty, but to a different dynasty. But instead, let's start here. Brock Purdy is starting to enter the Dak Prescott category of quarterbacks, where he is clearly a very capable quarterback and serviceable and can win games and at times go on a run in the playoffs, but he is not an elite quarterback in the NFL. Some media members, some San Francisco 49ers fans are constantly hammering home this idea that Brock Purdy is not only a good quarterback, but he's an elite one for the San Francisco 49ers. But constantly what we have seen from people skeptical about this elite Brock Purdy narrative is without all of his weapons, without cohesive and chemistry, he's just not the same quarterback. He threw three, all of them, egregious picks to the Kansas City Chiefs today. And I had a buddy tell me, well, this is the worst game Brock Purdy's played. No, that's not true. He's had two of the worst games of his life at home in standalone games. The Baltimore Ravens last year, where if I'm not mistaken, he threw 4 interceptions, and the Kansas City Chiefs this year. Brock Purdy going up against good to very good to elite defenses is simply not the same quarterback, whether he has all of his weapons or not. And so when you subtract those guys, when you subtract Deebo Samuel, when you subtract Brandon Ayuk, when you subtract Christian McCaffrey, he's just not the same guy. He cannot put you on his back and say, I got this, guys. I know everyone's hurt. I know people are having a bad game. I got this. I will take you to the promised land. He has showed us consistently he is not able to do that. There were a few plays in the Super Bowl that he wishes he could have back, but he didn't make them. There were a few plays in the playoffs last year that didn't bite him in the butt, but ultimately, at the end of the day, he is entering the Dak Prescott territory of quarterbacks. He's a good quarterback. He's reliable. You can win games with him, and you can even at times go on a tear in the playoffs with him. If and only if he is not asked to be your best player. If and only if most of his weapons are healthy and are there to do most of the heavy lifting. This is not a pick on Brock Purdy reaction. This is just honesty at this point. And if you're still stouting, or if you're still pounding the table of Brock Purdy, top 5 quarterback, Brock Purdy should be up there with the Lamar Jacksons, the Josh Allens, the Joe Burrows, the Patrick Mahomes, I'm not so sure what you're seeing. You know, the biggest takeaway from Niners fans, or the first rebuttal to Niners fans when I call Brock Purdy not elite is, well, he didn't have all of his weapons. That's not fair. Well, he was still at home. Still had Kyle Shanahan. Still had Trent Williams for most of that game. Still had George Kittle. Jordan Mason is a very productive back. But sure, let's just say that. Let's just say Brock Purdy, the main excuse is he didn't have all of his weapons. Patrick Mahomes is out there throwing to Mecole Hardman, and Kareem Hunt is running the football. Josh Allen, before this week, had Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir. Joe Burrow once won a playoff game being sacked 9 times on the road against the number 1 seed and won. The bottom line is, if you have an elite quarterback, there are no excuses. You perform week in and week out, and you make the play. Patrick Mahomes, Mecole Hardman, Kareem Hunt. He made the plays necessary to succeed. Oh, but Mahomes, his statistics aren't great this year, and he's 6-0. Stop making excuses for Brock Purdy why he wasn't elite this time around. Just be honest with yourself. And then you will be able to figure out how to win easily against some of these teams. You'll be able to understand you can't put everything on the plate of Brock Purdy. Look at the wins for Brock Purdy this year. He's got wins against Jacoby Brissett, 50-year-old Aaron Rodgers, and Geno Smith. 50-year-old Aaron Rodgers, Jacoby Brissett, and Geno Smith. Those are the wins for Brock Purdy this year. You want to know who the quarterbacks Brock Purdy has lost to this year? Kyler Murray, who you can argue is more talented. Sam Darnold, who has been on fire this year. Patrick Mahomes, a Super Bowl MVP. And, of course, someone else that I'm missing, Matthew Stafford. So the quarterbacks that Brock Purdy has lost to, Matthew Stafford, Super Bowl quarterback, I guess I should say Super Bowl winner, Matthew Stafford, more talented Kyler Murray, Sam Darnold, who's been on fire this year, and Super Bowl MVP and three-time Super Bowl champion, Patrick Mahomes. He is not in the elite echelon group of quarterbacks. He's just not. The wins that he has this year, Jacoby Brissett, Aaron Rodgers, and I just mentioned it, and Geno Smith, are very telling about the quarterback that Brock Purdy is. He is one of the best Tier 2 quarterbacks in the NFL. He is one of the better Tier 2 quarterbacks in the NFL. He's not in the Tier 1 tier. He's not in the class of Lamar. He's not in the class of Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow. He's in that second tier with the Dak Prescotts, with the Kirk Cousins of the world, with the Kyler Murrays of the world, with this year the Sam Darnolds of the world. And he's consistently showed us year in and year out this is exactly who he is. Don't blame Brock Purdy because you still expect him to be elite. He was Mr. Irrelevant for a reason. He walked in to what was a stacked roster and asked just not to screw it all up like Jimmy G did at times. But consistently without his best weapons, or just without one or two of his best weapons, he's not the same quarterback. And paying him $60 to $65 million a year would be malpractice if you're John Lynch. But their hands are tied. They're probably going to have to do so. And they're going to get stuck with a Tier 2 quarterback paying him premier, top 4, top 5 quarterback money. And that never ends well. And on the other side, you have the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Kareem Hunt, Mecole Hardman, Andy Reid and company. And all they do is win. I see people upset because Patrick Mahomes' stat line isn't amazing. He's 6-0, has multiple Super Bowls. You get a mulligan from me when you continuously do the same thing every single week. Just win. Yeah, I'm sorry that Patrick Mahomes' stat line isn't exactly lighting up what you want it to be, fanboy. It's kind of hard to win with Kareem Hunt, who just came off the couch. Mecole Hardman, who was cut by the Jets last year. With Sky Moore, who's been largely a bust for this team. And 30-plus-year-old Travis Kelce. But that's what Patrick Mahomes does. And they don't necessarily remind me completely like the New England Patriots, like I comped to, like a lot of people comped 2 years ago. This Kansas City Chiefs team is starting to remind me like the Nick Saban run, late 2000s, early 2010s, Alabama Crimson Tide, where you might get them on an off week, and you might beat them. And sometimes it might not always look beautiful. In fact, most of the time it looks ugly. But situationally, they're always better than you. With 2 timeouts and 2 minutes to go, you know they're going to score. And it doesn't matter what talent they have because they are beautifully coached. And it's why continuously for years, they kept on winning the Natty. It wasn't because the refs were on their side. It wasn't because they were paying players. It's because they always did everything right. They always had the most depth. They were always able to punch you in the mouth. And often at times, they didn't have the best quarterback play. But their quarterbacks were always situationally great, similar to Patrick Mahomes. And what Mahomes is doing every year just gets more impressive. This was the year they were supposed to have Hollywood Brown. They were supposed to have Rashee Rice break out. Isaiah Pacheco really coming to his own. And still had Travis Kelce and the mastermind of Andy Reid. You take away Hollywood Brown. You take away Rashee Rice. You have a Travis Kelce who doesn't look as formidable as he used to, even though he's still a serviceable tight end. And it's the complete opposite to Brock Purdy. He answers the bell. He doesn't make excuses. Fans don't have to say, well, he didn't have his star wide receiver. Because constantly, week in and week out, they just win. Seriously, I picked another team from the AFC to come out this year. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was the Ravens. Most of that was just because I kind of didn't want to see the Chiefs again. Or I guess I should say I did pick the Chiefs, but I didn't want to pick the Chiefs to be in the Super Bowl this year. I don't know if there's a team out there that can compete with the Chiefs. I don't know if there's a team out there that with all these injuries like the Chiefs have can still be as successful. This isn't a fraudulent 6-0. They walk into the Niners' house, punch them in the mouth. Patrick Mahomes doesn't play well. They still win. They're creative. They're fun to watch. And consistently, when you think they're down, that's when they punch you right in the mouth. It's impressive. Andy Reid is knocking on the door of potentially being the greatest coach of all time. Patrick Mahomes consistently does things that just wow you. Juju Smith-Schuster's out. Rashee Rice is out. Hollywood Brown is out. It's fine. We'll just sign Kareem Hunt off the scrap heap. We'll just put Mecole Hardman, who was cut by the Jets last year, and we'll just ask 30-plus-year-old Travis Kelce to continue to find spaces and soft coverages and dominate you. And that's what the Chiefs have done. And right now, there is no argument to be made that there is any team in the NFL better than them. Not the Lions, not the Vikings, not the Ravens, not the Niners. I genuinely feel sorry for football fans and other teams of the NFL. I have no idea how you are going to beat this head coach and quarterback combo. Because you'll check the stats, and they won't look beautiful, and they still will have beaten you by multiple scores. The Niners were favored in this game. Vegas hasn't even learned their lesson yet about the Kansas City Chiefs. They just continue to surprise people. And right now, they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl. And they should be. And there's no team right now that I would feel confident in picking against them. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are on an insane tear. 12 straight wins. 12. Dating back to last year. They don't have the officials in their back pocket. They're just better than you. And situationally, they are extremely better than your favorite team. And that will always be the difference between the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers. Brock Purdy loses a couple of players. He's not the same player. Patrick Mahomes loses a couple of players, and somehow he gets better. That's what separates the elite quarterbacks and the Kirk Cousins. They're pretty good. You can win with them, quarterbacks. But when everything is going haywire, Patrick Mahomes figures it out. Brock Purdy does not. And that's what separates the elites from the okay quarterbacks. The have and have-nots in the NFL.